especially amongst Westerners, there is still very much a goal-orientated approach to practice, and one of achieving something, of somehow, if we can only be willful enough, then we can power our way to nirvana. Because that's the way most forms of success are measured, are often in the West. It's one of really putting in the effort. And I feel that often gets in the way for people, that the willful striving becomes just another form of unhealthy desire, one of trying to become, get, obtain. And even these words like to attain enlightenment, it's important to look at how we use language. So I would usually say realize, or try to steer people away from this idea that they are getting something. You can look at this topic from both sides, even from, say, a scriptural perspective. On the one hand, Buddhism is called I think it's called a Kamawada, Kiryawada, a religion or a doctrine of action, or one of Viryawada, of effort. And so that really gives a sense of strive, persevere, really get in there. And so it's maybe not forceful, but it's fairly dynamic in that sense of get your hands dirty. And yet there is another teaching, very important teaching, that is recurring, that describes a process of nature that unfolds even without any jetana, which is mind-boggling. That, wait, if you keep impeccable sila, if you really don't harm others, you establish yourself in a life of non-harming and of kindness and of generosity, a virtuous life, then your life will be free from remorse. Why? Because you haven't done anything. There's nothing, even when you're alone. People often think they get away with a crime because they haven't got caught, but they have to live with themselves. And then they have to kill that part of themselves, which we call our conscience, that reminds them. And I think that's a real terrible act of violence, where people just try and bury their own conscience. In this particular model, there are 10 factors, which then leads to joy, which then leads to delight, which then leads to tranquility, which leads to happiness, which leads to concentration, all the way to enlightenment. And that each one of these is not an act of will. So when there's non-remorse, there will be joy. It's just a law of nature. In fact, it's the way it's described. It's tamada, or in dhammata, in how we would pronounce it in English. It's just part of nature. This seems like a paradox. How can it be a religion of action, of engagement, and yet a very important part of the process is completely not, in a sense. So one way to describe that is a little bit like planting a tree. So we want apples. We like apple pie, we want apples. If it takes a while, whatever, 20 years, maybe 15 years, but it's worth it. So we plant an orchard, even if it's for the sake of our children. So we don't put in a bitter gourd seed. We put in an apple seed. That's really important at first. Put that in the ground. But then, if we're sitting there day and night with our flashlight and constantly propping it up and watering it, we'll kill it because we're doing too much. At some point, we just, again, we try and add to the supportive conditions to bring about a desired result, but we let nature take its course. The apple seed has within it the potential to become a mature apple tree that bears apples, then gives food to our table. But we didn't create the apple. And it would be a real a real injustice to claim that, oh man, I'm God, I created an apple, by putting this seed in there. No, we did participate, but nature, and so that is what I would call is the art of doing nothing. It's knowing when to step forward, when to sit back, and that's a real fine tuning.